I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently, the Lifepreneur podcast. I'm a hyperachiever turned lifepreneur, and after a decade of coaching ambitious leaders, I'm convinced we are far closer than we realize to what we deeply desire, and it's a willingness to do differently that can change everything. This podcast is for the everyday leader ambitious for a rich, out-of-the-box life. This is your weekly nudge and reminder to take a risk to build a life that is uniquely bold, authentic, and in alignment with your deepest values. I know there's a lot to get done. You have a lot on your plate. You're likely managing a business or a job, a family, keeping your marriage afloat, and not to mention, if you're like me, managing your own self on certain days can feel like a full-time job. And you love to-do lists, and they keep you on track. Or do they? You've heard me say it. I spent half of my life checking boxes that I thought were leading to a so-called happy, successful life until I realized they weren't. This has seriously lit a fire in me, and it's my mission to help you, remind you to raise your head from the busyness to make sure that your list is heading you in the right direction. And by right, I mean to the things, experiences, and moments that matter most to you. So that's what today's episode is about. Your life is more than a to-do list. To-do lists are awesome. I love them too. But let's make sure that they're helping you live more of the life you want, beginning right now. This episode was inspired by two things. One is conversations I've been having lately with leaders where I have asked them, are you surviving your life or building a life? And they both more or less said, I haven't stopped to lift my head to see if the motions I'm making are leading to the life I want to be living. And secondly, I just returned from a 2+ week working road trip with my husband that was truly the coming to life of a component of a vision that I've been holding for 10+ years. And I was reminded of the power of having a vision, a direction you're headed for your life, and how sometimes these visions can be long-term visions. This certainly was for me. And it was a component of a vision that a lot of it had come to life, but this one component I had to carry for years before it actually got realized. And the pure joy of having that come to life is why I'm here today sharing all of this with you. When life is so full and so busy, it's really easy to feel like you're doing all the right things because you're busy and you're working and you're moving things ahead, or so you think. But too often when I'm working with clients, when we pause to really look, we find that that's not the case. And I know how important it is to you to have a life that allows you to build your dream or build work that you love without sacrificing the other hugely important parts of your life. And may I remind you that that doesn't happen someday, because if you don't know how to create those kinds of moments now, you won't know how to do it then. So what can you do right now to make a shift? First is give yourself permission to pause and lift your head. What are you building? What is your vision? Do you have one? Do you need to revisit or refine and just get back in front of you? Or maybe it's time to create one. I know that this question can be overwhelming, and it doesn't have to, I want you to know that it doesn't have to be some big mission like solving world hunger. It just has to be something that lights you up, that lights a fire inside of you. I remember years ago reading about a woman and her mission was to be a force of good. I have carried that with me for years. I borrowed it from her. I want that too. I want to show up all over my life with that mission. I also have visions that guide different parts of my life. Having an extraordinary marriage that has guided the way I show up to my marriage for years and years and years. I have a client who has a vision or a mission to make joy loops. Bringing joy to people's lives fills her up, fills them up, and it ripples on and on. In fact, there's an episode, that's episode 40, Make Joy Loops with Samantha Brote. That might be a good one to go back and listen to. Or maybe your vision is just a set of words that remind you of the feelings you want to create more of in your life today, like peace, joy, freedom. There is no right vision, and it can change. What's calling you forward today? Go with that. So why? Why is this important? It's important so that you can build a life instead of just survive and get things crossed off the list. Yes, a vision is out in the future. It's a future that you want to live into. But the most important part of it is that it guides how you're going to show up today. It guides you, it informs you how you want to think, behave, and do right here in this moment now. A vision is a guide, not set in stone, but without it, we have nothing to align our actions and behaviors to. For example, I had a vision when I was a new mom. My vision was I wanted to enjoy being with my kids always. And that really guided how I parented. Truly, this came from a fear of not knowing how I would discipline my kids and worry that I wouldn't be good at that. Seeing what I didn't want, right? Which was unruly, disrespectful children. And this vision of my boys being a joy to be with is really what helped me know the how in the moments, how I would love them, how I would communicate with them, how I would set boundaries for them. And honestly, this has allowed for one of the greatest parts of my life, which is being with my boys. This can also mean and guide you in adding things to your to-do list that move the needle in this direction, even in the smallest of ways. Another example, my vision for my business for the last 10 years was to create a remarkable business that had deep impact for my clients and allowed for a spacious, flexible, mobile lifestyle. While planning my days, weeks, and months over the past years, I'm always looking back to this to see if I'm making motions and decisions that allow for these things to be possible. And on some days, it can get as simple as, what can I do today that creates impact for my clients or gives me the feeling of space and flexibility in my life? The actions to that could simply be send a spontaneous text to a client, or take my work to the coffee shop this week, or carve out an hour for thinking and writing while I sit outside. The second reason this vision is so important is that it can calm your mind and help you overcome the battle in your mind. It makes decision-making easier because you can filter choices through the vision. So this can create a lot of calm. It can eliminate a lot of indecision because you can filter your choices and actions through this vision of where you're headed to make sure that it's aligned with your bigger goals and dreams. It will also help you to show up on the days that your mind is bullying you around and making you feel like everything is too hard, it's not going to work, or you don't have what it takes. Seriously, it's a vision or my calling that has me show up and wrestle with my mind. It is what allows me to challenge my thinking, ultimately calm my thinking and get it on board so that I can keep moving forward. This is really real for me. Without these visions in these important areas of my life, I seriously might have resigned in defeat on many things years ago. What can you do now? This week, I want to invite you to do whatever it takes to carve out 15 to 30 minutes to revisit or create your vision. Honestly, don't overthink this. It's likely already in you, and there's no right vision. Remember, I looked up the word vision, and it's the state of being able to see. So seeing something that you want to head towards. The other definition was the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination. So you can make this up, but make sure that it lights a little fire in you and it's going to get you out of bed. And then take a look at your to-do lists for this next week or the coming week. are the things on your list leading you towards this vision and the life you want to have? And what's 1, 2, or 3 things that you can add to your list this week that will create more of the feelings you want in your life while you're on your way to that vision? After all, you are building a life and living it now, not someday. And on the last episode with Joel Stone, he talks about how writing down his goals and intentions allow him to be dangerous in the best way possible. So go be dangerous in the best way possible this week. Get your eyes on your vision and start aligning your actions. I can't wait to see what happens. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit follow on your favorite podcast app. And if this episode could impact someone you know, please share it and pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.